Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. Thank you for joining us. Our guest today, none other than Coach Sam Piraro. Welcome to the show.
Chris, good morning. Great to see you again, and congratulations on your outstanding season. I know I followed you, and your team got better as the season went on, and that's kind of how the mantra is with you. And like I said, great job.
Thank you very much. A return visitor to Beyond the Buckets, one of our most popular episodes, both on the streaming, on the podcast platforms, as well as YouTube. So thank you for returning back to us. We've had several conversations offline, and I always appreciate the time that we have together. You have so much knowledge that I continue to learn from you. So I just appreciate your time. And if any indication behind you, all those books, there's just so much knowledge that you've learned over the years, and you've read every single one of those books on your shelf. So I'm glad to have you back on, dropping some more knowledge to the rest of the people here.
Well, thanks, Chris. I have read every one of those books, and some of them twice. And I really enjoy reading about successful people and whatever line of work they may be in. And we all, you can learn from any walk of life, right? So to me, reading is a great source for that.
No doubt. So today our chat is going to be kind of about the new school and old school versions of coaching, and kind of how you've kind of seen it all from when you started coaching till now, and you're still coaching to this day. But what have you seen as far as the change in coaching styles? Obviously, back in the day, you can get away with a lot more things that you would say or do as a coach you wouldn't currently be able to do any longer. And so kind of just walk through a little timeline from your perspective on how things have changed so drastically over the years.
Well, Chris, I probably would go back in time until, when I was playing, whether it was high school or even in college. And, the coach basically, you did what the coach asked you to do. And, there wasn't much debate involved. There wasn't much pushback. Whatever you were asked to do, no matter what the tone was, no matter what the disposition of the coach was, you kind of went along and followed without any issue at all. I don't recall me ever going home and telling my mom and dad that the coach said this to me or made me do this or that, because my parents probably would have backed the coach anyway. So, that's probably a source of change, in terms of nowadays, the parents might be involved a little bit more than they were 30, 40, maybe even 20 years ago. So the ball game is a little bit different, no doubt about it.
Right. And so what are the positives of the old school approach to coaching?
Well, I really think values don't change over time, Chris. I think the values that we learned years ago still are steadfast. And what I mean by that is, teaching people to earn through achievement and effort, not just, hey, I showed up and now I'd like my just rewards. The beautiful thing about coaching is that that's kind of how it can still work, where you come out, if you have the right attitude and you're there every day, your attendance is good. You practice, you are a good teammate, you're unselfish, you do what the team needs. These are values that are lifetime values. And that's why, in coaching, that's the number one thing you have to build as a culture. You have to establish how your team's going to operate, just like a household. When you raise your kids a certain way based on how you want them to function in your house, in your home. And I really don't see any difference with coaching.
For sure. I'm going to pause right now because there's a little bit of static on your end. Can you move your iPad just a little bit? Like, I don't know if keep talking to me.
You want me closer or further away?
Well, there's a little bit of static. I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah, I don't hear any. I don't hear anything.
Okay, that sounds a little better. Keep talking to
Okay,
me.
I'm a little bit closer now.
Back up a little bit.
Okay, how's that? Is that okay?
Keep going, but keep talking to me.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
less static now. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So talk to me about like technology, for instance, has changed drastically since even I was born. I was born in the 80s, and from 1982 till now, technology is completely different. And I would also say that the coaching profession is also completely different as well. There are still some coaches that coached back in the day that are still coaching, and they've found ways to reinvent themselves and kind of change with the culture. And the same thing as technology. If you didn't get used to a smartphone, iPhone or Android, well, you're getting left behind. And my feeling is a lot of the coaches who continue to stay set in their ways will also be left behind because you can't coach the same way. So, talk about just like how technology has changed over the years, how has coaching also changed in that same vein? And what are the things that you have to do to continue to reinvent yourself as a coach?
Well, there's a lot of teaching and coaching, and when you're trying to be a teacher, in the older days, we did have film. We had film, and we were able to look at the film and see where our technique was or how a certain play was run, but it was not used exclusively. Nowadays, in the sport of baseball, for example, you just can't show somebody how to build their swing up or their throwing technique. You literally have to have them see it themselves, where they look at their bodies and they can actually have a picture of themselves that are going along with your words. Words alone will not necessarily get it done. So the old school coaches, that probably is a challenge, or has been a challenge, because you were very confident, Chris. I always was confident that I could look a guy in the eye, put my hands, in other words, put them in a position to where they could get a feel of what we were trying to teach them, or get on a blackboard. I used the blackboard, whiteboard a lot, in terms of explaining where you should be, where you shouldn't be. We used a lot of techniques there. But with that being said, now, you know, the years I spent at Willow Glen, for example, I did use technology more. And I had a couple of assistants that were very savvy in that area. So I utilized their talents in that area, because that's still not a strength of mine. And they were able to do some things that I thought were really beneficial for our players. So I agree that if you don't do that, if you're stubborn in that area, you will in fact get left behind, because players do want to see themselves get better, and they need to see themselves on tape, on film, on a computer, whatever it is. It makes a big difference. So you can't be stubborn. I guess that's my point. No matter how painful it might be, and you're not, you change is hard, coach. Change is difficult, and when you've done something for a long time and you believe in it, change is not easy. But we are in a situation now where there has to be alteration to what you do, and along that way is the technology, no doubt about it.
Speaking of technology, there is an urban myth about Coach Sam Piraro when he was at San Jose State, that when you got an email, you wanted it printed out so you can read it, and then you would respond, but you would have somebody else respond after you hand wrote it out. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was at San Jose State, uh, I was also an assistant athletic director there. So what I did is I was able to hire student assistants, and I would keep them for their 4 years at San Jose State. So I'd hire somebody as a freshman, they'd stay with me 4 years, and then when they graduated, I'd bring somebody else in. So over my career, Chris, I probably had five of those people, And yes, their job was to go through my emails and sort out the ones that I had to deal with, or that, were prominent, and I had to act, in a quick fashion. And then I would handwrite them out and have them, do their magic, so to speak, and get it out there. And over time, they knew exactly what emails that I didn't need to see and which emails I needed to see. So that is true.
That's a great example of delegation and understanding your limitations as far as technology goes, but you were still getting the information and receiving the information and then basically getting it back out. So, for a lot of us, we're not strong in every single capacity. So for me in particular, I try to surround myself with people that have better attributes in certain areas than myself. So, female assistants that can basically identify more with the players than I can. People that are more empathetic because I'm not as empathetic as I want to be. I'm continuing to learn and get better because of that. So it's extremely important to surround yourself with people that um, multiply or add to whatever it is that you bring to the table, and so you can really become a really strong team as far as your staff goes.
I think, Chris, what you just said right there is an amazing point. And you get back to hiring for a second. In college, of course, recruiting is paramount. If you're not a good recruiter, if you don't recruit the right people, you won't be on the job very long, especially in today's age. Your lifespan in coaching at Division 1 is not very long. So, of course, the recruiting is really important. But you touched on something, and that is hiring, the hiring process, and surrounding yourself with people that, like you said, are better than you in some areas. They might be able to, I always try to get the best pitching coach I could get my hands on. And I know pitching. And I can call a game okay, and I'm not great mechanically, but I'm okay. But I always wanted somebody that was better than me in that area. I also wanted somebody that was better than me, for example, in recruiting. They had a knack for communicating, establishing relationships with younger people. And you can't be fearful of that. You if you just want to have yourself be the top dog over time, that'll come back and bite you. So the hiring process, you cannot rush that. You have to do your due diligence. You have to be honest when you're interviewing somebody. You have to make sure there's no doubt about what you want, because you're the head coach. You're the person that is the face of a program, and you're the top dog. But you do need to delegate, give good people responsibility, and let them work.
No doubt. I think that's a great point. And I kind of want to pivot just a little bit and let's talk about parents' involvement. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but for so many coaches, that is one of the biggest issues. I wouldn't even say issues, just challenges that you have is navigating somebody's child. And in today's era, like you touched on it a little bit, as a player, back in the day, you just did what the coach asked you to do. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you didn't want to do it, then you just wouldn't play. But your parents wouldn't really get in the way that much because that was just kind of how things were. In today's society, everybody has a voice, everybody wants to be heard. And so how have you seen things change from when you originally started coaching till now, and how can coaches be better with regard to dealing with parents, because parents aren't going to go away, but you have to be able to have some sort of relationship and you guys have to be in a partnership even if you don't see eye to eye. But yeah, just talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, Chris, depending on the level you're at, so for example, I coached at all three levels. I spent 9 years in community college. I spent 31 years in Division 1, and this is my 8th year in terms of high school. So they're all a little different. Okay. Now, if you ask me which level that I had to deal with parents the least, it was community college. Um, you know, in many cases, the parents were thrilled that their sons had continued their education and continued to play in a sport, and they were very grateful that they had somebody that was looking after their son. Okay, and I don't think I ever had a talk to a parent in a negative way in my 9 years. Um, Division 1, you don't have much interaction with parents other than in the recruiting cycle, and this is where it's very important when you make a home visit. All the chips have to be on the table. If you're a demanding coach, you can't sit there in somebody's home and tell the parent that you're really easy. Hey, I get along with everybody, and your son can do this and do that. You have to kind of be out there, and you have to say, hey, this is how we do business. And by the way, your son's got to get a haircut, and all these have to be out in the forefront. So I always felt that was paramount. Now, the years in high school, what I did, Chris, is, and this was under the recommendation of Eric Ostrowski, who was my athletic director at Willow Glen. He suggested parent meetings, and I had really never done that, and I did that, and I cannot tell you how significant that was. A preseason meeting with the parents, where you go over all the parameters, expectations, how you're going to coach, how you want, the accountability level that their sons were going to engage in. I'll give you an example. A parent asked me a question about spring break. They said, we go to Palm Springs every spring break. We've done it for years and years. Will my son be penalized for going to spring break? Missing games, for example. And that was a really, that hit me between the eyes. And I had to really think about that. And my answer was this: you're the parent, it's your child. Um, when you say penalty, certainly he's not going to be punished by running and doing this, doing that. But we're still going to play the games. We are going to put somebody at the position that your son plays in. And if that individual performs at a good level, he's going to stay in there. And we're not going to replace him once your son comes back from Palm Springs. And that was a very good, I never had a problem after that. So the point is that you can't tell somebody they can't go, right? The parents are going to take them. But you're not penalizing, but you have to understand there's accountability. You're on a team. You're part of a team. You have responsibilities. I mean, when I think about when I played, I never missed practice. I mean, missing practice was unbelievable. To miss a game was you crazy or what? So, I mean, these are the things that the coaches of today have to be open to this. These are things that happen, and you can't sit there and blow a gasket. You still have to say, okay, I understand. This is what your family does. I respect that, but we're not stopping the operation. We will move forward with the people we have, and there is some risk involved that your son may not be able to get back into that lineup uh, when he comes back.
Right. Yeah, you touched on a lot of great things, and for me, yeah, I would never miss practice. I would never miss a game. That was just never going to be in the cards. And so my first year at Valley Christian, we had a situation where we want to encourage multiple sport athletes. So playing multiple sports, as you know, is just a great thing. When I was in high school, I played football, basketball, and baseball. Baseball is my best sport, as you know, but I stopped playing after my sophomore year, and you should have gave me some advice to stick with that. But everything works out the way it's supposed to. We had an All-American volleyball player and she was 6'3", could dunk a tennis ball, was the best basketball player too if she wanted to be on any given night. But volleyball was her thing, and club volleyball is directly in the same time as the basketball season. So, as a coach, you have two options. You can either have this player participate on a limited basis, or you can have this player not participate at all. Well, it would hurt the team if she didn't participate. So we get through CCS. We won CCS that year, and we get into NorCal playoffs, and it's the second round of the playoffs. Well, during that time was the biggest volleyball tournament of the year, and she was a junior at the time, getting ready to be recruited by everybody in the nation. And we've got this NorCal basketball tournament. Is there going to be more volleyball tournaments? Yes, but if we lose this basketball game, it is the end of our season. So we had a dilemma. She decided that she wanted to go play volleyball, which is her first sport, and you kind of got to live with that. So she missed practice that whole week. It's in the month of February, so it's basically school is out, and our game was on Saturday. So she went to the tournament. She didn't practice all week. She ends up flying into the game in Sacramento. She was in Utah, flew in. We had to start her because she is one of our better players. We talked to everybody. Are you guys okay? If she misses practice, she's not. It's not like she's sitting on the couch, and so that was a big change and an eye opener for me to start just listening and hearing these sort of things and seeing if there's a way that we can work things out rather than just kind of shut it down. Because previously I'd have been like, no, you don't practice, you're not playing. But that has changed over my coaching period, and just something that is new and something that I've learned to start to deal with. And people have other things that they're interested in, just like you and I. We're coaches, but we also have other interests that we like to do. But I've always tried to make things a priority. So my family is my number one priority, but I also spend a lot of time away from them because I'm coaching, and I've made a commitment. So talk to me a little bit about that commitment. You talked about never missing practice, definitely not missing a game, and just that dynamic of how do you make that work in today's world?
Well, Chris, I listened very carefully to what you were saying. There was a lot of moving parts with your situation there, but there are two things that stuck in my mind. Number one, it sounded like you communicated with your team about this, and you let your players know, how you felt, and the effort. In other words, this gal didn't go on vacation. She was competing and doing this, and to her credit, she got on an airplane and made sure that she could get to your game. Okay, so those two things to me are very important. Now, personally, I would not have started her, but I would have gotten her into the game as quickly as I could. Okay, there again, that's the old school in me.
Sure.
That and in basketball and football, there's benefit there because in baseball, if you don't start that person, the substitution patterns are way different. Okay, they're just way different. I can sit in basketball. I might have sat her for 2 minutes and got her in the game. In football, maybe he misses a set of downs and he gets back in there. Okay, but it's kind of like just, hey, listen, this is how we do it. We're not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong, but this is the parameters. This is the infrastructure of what we do, and I think the communication part, Chris, and this is why you were able to pull it off, is you have that relationship with your players. So there was no bitterness. I mean, there wasn't like players were going to boycott because you did that. So it's a credit to you. But I still am from the school that practice is important. I do believe you need to be there. And if you do miss, there should be some catharsis involved, whether it's a makeup run at lunchtime, in the morning, whatever it is. So everybody on the team understands that. And because you don't want bitterness amongst your players. If I'm a backup player, if I'm a backup, and the person who's ahead of me misses practice a lot, but I don't get to play, and I come to practice every day, that's, that's not something that's going to make me a great teammate. I just don't know if I would look at it that way. Now, if the coach explained to me, here's the protocol, here's the process, that may make sense to me. I get that. So I think communication, and there again, getting back to that parents meeting, those are things that had to be brought out, discussed. Um, I respect leadership. I respect people that are ahead of me. You know, whoever my boss might have been, um, I respected that person and what their credentials were and what they wanted from me, and I try to adhere to that. So I'm somebody that respects leadership, and as long as it's explained to me, uh, I'm usually all in.
For sure. And I didn't have the right answer during that whole situation. And there was multiple times that I would meet with our admin to discuss what the situation was going to be, because I was in the same camp that, hey, she didn't practice. She's definitely not going to start, and she's not going to play. Now, after the conversations that we had with the administration as well as the players, they all decided that it would be in our team's best interest that she did play, because she was doing something else. It wasn't like she didn't want to miss. She just had she was going to play college volleyball. She wasn't going to play college basketball, and she actually didn't end up playing her senior year because she just wanted to focus on volleyball. So yeah, and still to this day, our rule is if you miss practice today before, you're definitely not starting. You might not even play the first quarter. And if you're late and you're a starter, which it happened this year, one of our starters in our playoff game was late to our shoot around, and we couldn't start her. Um, and now she was in within a couple minutes, like you mentioned, but it drives the point home, whether it's right or wrong. You got to be accountable to whatever it is, and we're never late as coaches. We are always on time, and if we are late, it may be, circumstances out of our control. But I can literally, the only times I've ever missed, well, I had to miss 3 games this year because I was under COVID protocols, and I missed a couple of games when CJ was born. But that was really it. Other than that, I've made every single thing. I haven't been sick and missed a game or anything like that. It just mind boggles me for anybody to want to miss. But again, we're trying to meet people where they are, and you just have to be open to seeing another side of things.
I agree 100%, Chris, and that's kind of what we're talking about is the flexibility now. There, you have to be more flexible today than you were before, because it was kind of black and white back then. You know, hey, no, you're not playing. You missed practice, you're not playing. You're not going to start because you were late. So there is flexibility, and I still think the good coaches have a way that they can still do things the way they want to do it. They can still have their value system in place without having to, feel like they can't look in the mirror anymore. But you do have to have a degree of flexibility. And your situation is, I think, a great example. And I think you handled it extremely well. It sounds like you sought help from your administration. They stepped forward for you, because it's great to have everybody on the same page.
Right.
I know when I was at Willow Glen, I met with Eric Ostrowski once a week, just to let him know what I was doing, and so he understood that, because I didn't want him ambushed, with a phone call or an email or something, and because you do need to have support ahead of you, the people that you work for, you want their support. You want them to, if you get caught in a storm, Chris, you want your AD or your principal to be in your corner, because we all need that over the course of our career. And when you think that you don't need that, that's a critical mistake. And you're left out, and it's very lonely. It's a very lonely feeling when you're in that predicament.
Yeah, and you mentioned Eric twice now. Ostrowski is somebody that coached me in high school, and he was also one of my first bosses as far as being a high school coach. and he does a great job relationally with the staff, and meeting with him every single week is a great thing. And for administrators that are out there listening, for coaches too, you have to really treat your staff fantastic. Like the camaraderie that you and your staff have need to be in unison. You need to take them out to dinners. You need to invite them over to your house. You need to spend time with them outside of the game. And if you like the person that you're, the people that you're with, it just makes the experience so much greater when you can do that. And I know you've done that. You've invited your teams over for dinners. You've incorporated your entire family, your wife and kids ingrained within the program, and now they have some sort of ownership, and they know everything about the players. They know if they're going through a slump or things like that. And I think that's just the way you have to do it. And as far as like administration goes, I would tell any administrator that is listening to this to reach out to your coaches more often, because you never know what they might be going through. Hey man, let's go hang out and fellowship over a meal after the game when you get time, or just check in that way, like, or after a tough loss or even a big win, just a text here and there, just so they know that they're valued. Because a lot of times people feel like they're undervalued just because they haven't communicated with their administration. And I've seen that with a bunch of friends and colleagues in the industry, and they end up leaving because of a situation where they didn't feel like they were valued. And I think that's an important thing for coaches and people in powerful positions to at least understand a little bit better.
Well, you hit a good point there, Chris, and of course that also relates to your coaching staff as well. In other words, in baseball, in college, we used to play 60 games, and we had a ritual, a routine, if you will, that after every game we would spend an hour together minimum, reviewing, talking, discussing, uh, and that included the road as well. And those type of sessions really test the strength of a coaching staff, because I was a coach that, although I might have given away the pitch calling to my pitching coach, because that was his job, and in baseball that decides whether you win or lose. That person has a tremendous impact on how the game's going to turn out.
Right.
So I always felt I would want to ask him, and now with that being said, did I have veto power over a pitch during the game? Yes, I did. I could have said, let's go breaking ball here to this guy. Let's not give him any foul. No, that's my job. Okay, it's my house, right? In other words, there'll be a for sale sign in front of there if I don't do the things I need to do. But my point is, you know, you give responsibility to your coaches, you entrust in them, and like you said, they still have to understand the accountability. The head coach is, you know, hey, why did we do that? What was our thinking? Why did you send that runner on that? Did you realize we had so and so coming up? So there's some hard line things that go on, but when it's over with and that meeting's over with, you shake hands and you say, hey, you walk out of there unified, right? You
Right.
have to be unified. On a practice field, you never argue. We never argued on a practice field. We never wanted the players to see us in dispute. Now we disputed. But it was never in front of the players. It was never in
No
front of
doubt.
the players.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important. Um, I think I had 9 ADs while I was at San Jose State, Chris. I had 9 different athletic directors. Okay, that was difficult because when you get used to one, then there'd be another one, and they have maybe a whole different set of how they want to do business.
Right.
I tried to do my best and get to know each AD, but let me tell you something. They're thinking football, basketball as their their top priorities. So then you have to find somebody else in the department that you could communicate with, because sometimes we need to talk to somebody, right?
Right.
And it's great to talk to your wife. It's great to talk to your mom, okay? But at the same time, you want to talk to somebody else that kind of knows what you're going through.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I want to chat a little bit about just the ups and downs of coaching. You know, tough losses really weigh on you, and it feels like the longer you do it, the tough losses are just harder to take. Um, the different missteps you may have made in communication with either players or parents, uh, and then the you obviously have pressure from outside, obviously, but most of us, the pressure is more internally. But when you start to, when people start to, talk bad about how you're doing things, how did you ever manage those times? Because it's not always roses and butterflies when you're coaching. You're human just like everybody else. You have ups and downs just like everybody else. Just like in a relationship, a friendship, whether you work for a company, there's times where you're like, man, why am I even doing this? Why am I working at this place? Why am I even coaching? You start to question these things, and then you take some time and you reflect and you get back and like, man, I love this. But talk about some of those difficult moments you've had in your coaching career and how you were able to overcome those, because it comes for every single coach every single year. And I don't think there's a coach in the history of coaching that hasn't had those moments throughout the year, even on a very highly successful team.
Well, let's just start with the fact that if losing doesn't bother you, then there's something wrong with you. Okay, that was always my premise. I used to talk to my assistant coaches, and I kind of wanted them to suffer along with me. Okay, let's just start with that. No, and if they were smiling and laughing and joking after a loss, I question that. Okay, so I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but we tried to create a culture where we felt we could win, and we felt we deserved to win. Now, why did we deserve to win? Because we worked extremely hard, spent a lot of time. It was our jobs, and we tried to stay on top of things, and we took nothing for granted. So when you do all those things, you feel you deserve to win. Okay. Now, yes, the opponent has a lot to say about that. We had to play in a league where we're playing Fullerton, Rice, Long Beach, top teams, Fresno.
Fresno,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I mean, you know, you know, teams that had more things to work with. They had great coaching staff, great players, but that still was not going to be an excuse for us. We still had to find a way. Okay. So the key, see, in baseball, you lose a game, you win a game, you play the next day. You have to find a way. We called it the midnight rule. So we had what we called the midnight rule, and that applied to the coaches. So um, let's say you won a game, you could feel good about it. You can celebrate it until midnight, and then boom, now it's get on to tomorrow. Okay, if we lost, if we got beat, no matter how tough a loss it was, technically the rule was okay. We suffered. We mourned, whatever you want to call it, and then when midnight hit, we turn the page and we get ready for tomorrow. Now,
Hmm.
I'll tell you in all honesty that at midnight didn't stop me from hurting after a loss. I might have stayed up to 3, 4 in the morning, just trying to figure out what could I have done. What could I have done as a coach that we wouldn't have lost that one-run game? There was a move in there I could have did. And I think most head coaches do that. I'm sure you do it as well. Should I have pressed there? Should I have gone into a trap? Should I have made this defensive change? And in coaching, that never goes away. I don't care if you're coaching a little league team. Coaching is coaching. You're trying to put your players in the best position possible. You're trying to alter their behavior in such a way that they're thinking what's best for the team. You're trying to get them to understand that to win requires a lot of discipline and a lot of things. A lot of things have to go right to win. And you're teaching that every day. So even though you go home at night and say, God, why am I doing this? You can't live without it in some cases. It's part of who you are. I worked in the cannery for 13 summers. That was my summer job. I worked 12 hours a day. Man, when it was over, it was over. I mean, I want no part of it. I got to go back the next day. See, in coaching, no. I don't care what the loss was, the losing streak, what I can't get back. I can't wait to get back the next day. So that's the beauty of coaching. Now, once that stops, once you lose that passion, then you have to consider whether or not you want to do this any longer. And I've seen it happen with a lot of good coaches that have won and said, you know what, I'm out of gas. Look at Jay Wright, just retired yesterday from Villanova. That really surprised me. I for some reason I think he's going to take an NBA job or something, but he was winning. He's at the top of his game, and he's probably going to miss it, Chris. He's probably going to miss it because it's part of who we are. Yes, we have our families, and that is our number one priority. But at the end of the day, we are a coach. Young people look toward us for leadership, for advice. They look to us for direction. They look for us for teach them accountability. And it's like when they call you Coach McSwain, it's like saying Dr. McSwain. That's a title there. That is a great title. When you call, hey, doctor, hey, coach, think about it. I mean, that is a great honor that you have.
For sure. Wow, a couple of gems. One, how have you been able to do it so long for 40 plus years and not get burnt out with the day-to-day grinds? Because a lot of people are depending on you. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders if you've got 25 guys on a baseball team or 12 kids on a basketball team, plus their family members, parents, grandparents, friends. Not to mention there's administration, all that, and every level is a little bit different, but there's still very similar challenges. You're still dealing with a lot of different people and trying to get them all to be on the same page. But how have you been able to do it for so long? Jay Wright just finished either 22 or 25 years at Villanova and has done a fantastic job. And so, the second part of the question is, what do you do after coaching? Because you retired 9 years ago from San Jose State, and you're back into coaching. You didn't think you were going to coach, but the very next year you're coaching at Willow Glen High School. So, there's a lot of, I didn't really ask a question, I threw out some comments, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, in Division I, it's 24/7, 365. So when you sign up for that, that's what it is. So I have friends of mine, and actually there's a couple of friends of yours that are baseball coaches that always ask me about Division I, and I tell them not to do it. I said, and I'm very blunt about that. I said, no, because if you're going to do that, it's 24/7, 365, or you won't be doing it long. Okay. You'll be doing it for a year or two, and they're going to tell you it's time to go. That's just the nature of the deal. I always advise them, hey, high school is good, depending on the high school you're at. Valley Christians, for example, is a great place to be. Middy's a great place to be. Community college, if you're a full-time coach, teacher, those are great jobs. I did that for 7 years. To this day, I think that's maybe the best job that I had, because I was not under 12 months of pressure, 24/7, 365. I technically had 2 months off. The pressure to win was not, it was self-pressure and self-pride or whatever. Your family, Chris, your family pays a price, okay? And I don't care how much time you give your family, how much time you spend with your family, they pay a price. There is a price to be paid, and it's difficult. So when you're fortunate enough to find a wife or a husband that understands what you go through every day, man, you got to count your lucky stars, because You come just because you come home, that doesn't mean you're home. Okay, you might be at the dinner table and didn't hear a word your wife said. Okay, and it wasn't because you were rude. It was because you were contemplating something that happened that day or is going to happen tomorrow, and it requires your attention. And just because you're off the clock, technically, which you're never off the clock, by the way, when you're coaching, you're never off the clock. So
Right.
you go on vacation, good luck. Okay. We would go on vacation. Unfortunately, I had to call in, check on summer school. I had to check on grades. I had to check on recruiting. I had to check on, guys that were maybe in Alaska or on the East Coast playing. Um, it was never shut down. So to, you have to make sure you connect with the right person that's going to be with you in your life if you're going to have if you're going to be able to last, because if not, it's going to be one and done, so to speak.
Right. Eh,
So yeah, you know what I'm saying. In other words,
No, I do.
there's no getting around it. Your family suffers.
Yeah. Do you regret any of the family time that was missed over your coaching career?
Yes, I do. I do. And I have one quick story, and this is when I look back on this, so when Jason was playing Little League, my son was playing Little League. He was playing in an all-star game, and it just so happened that the game fell on the night of our banquet, our baseball banquet. So the and Joanne said, "Hey, listen, we're going to be late for the banquet." Well, to make a long story short, I missed the banquet. I actually stayed and watched Jason play the game because I had not seen him play the entire year. Okay. Now that brought up a very difficult scenario for me with my team. Okay. So the next day, oh my gosh, uh, I was uh, I was not a very popular guy. Now, do I regret that? The answer is no. I had given that team, everything I had for the season. I had my assistants there to run the banquet. And we didn't have cell phones back then. It was 1994, but I did get to a phone booth and I called my assistant. I said, "Listen, I'm I'm going to watch Jason play this game because I haven't seen him play." So I regret missing things with my kids. They understood, Chris, because Joanne explained it to them. Joanne was really good at explaining. Dad's not here because he's in Texas. Dad's not here because he's, in Southern California. He's doing his job. So if I didn't have that, that might have made it more regretful.
For sure. And my wife is very understanding. She knew me. I was coaching when she met me, and we've known each other for 13 years now. We've been together for that long anyway. And yeah, it's that's going to be the thing that stops me from coaching, I believe, is my family time. Now, our high school is still 11-month job, 11-month out of the year job. So not when we start school in October, it's conditioning, it's open gym, or excuse me, August, it's conditioning, is open gym, it's getting ready for the season. Then the season starts in November to the end of February, early March, if we're still playing. And then you got a little bit of break from that, but you go right into AAU, and AAU goes from March till the end of July, and then you get a little bit of respite for a couple of weeks in August, and then you're back to school and doing it all over again. So, but even last night, I'm getting ready to go to AAU practice, and CJ's like, "Where are you going, Dad?" And he's like, I was like, "Wait, we got practice." He's like, "Oh, again?" And it's like, man, like, so that's the hard part. And sometimes I'll try to bring him to practices
Yeah.
and things like
Oh,
that. But
no
then,
doubt. No doubt.
but then it's hard to even run practice because you're trying to be a parent too.
Well, I took
So
Jason on, we, in the summer, that way. I even took Jenna with me occasionally when she was a baby. I said, "Hey, you want to go to Pal Stadium or Muni Stadium with Dad? Then we'll stop off afterwards, and I'll get you an ice cream or something." You try to make up for that time, right? You try to make up for it, and but you do miss a lot of time. But you had asked me earlier about, okay, so this actually, Chris, is my 48th year of coaching right now that I'm involved with. Like I told you, I was 31 years of Division I, 9 JC, 8 high school. My goal is to get to 50, God willing. Okay, if I can get to 50, I would say, you know what, I did my job. I fulfilled what I wanted to do, and I would be very happy with that. So, with God willing, I hope I get to that. But listen, um, you know, the losing still hurts. It always stays with you longer than the wins. The wins. You don't really appreciate the wins as much as you suffer with the losses, and that's unfortunate because you should celebrate the wins, and because you deserve it. It's hard to win. It's hard to win. The league you're in is you have a tough mountain there, and so you should celebrate your success because you're going against top competition, and that always gives you more gratification when that happens. But bottom line is, you over time you have to understand that even though you're in pain, don't drag your family into that pain level. Okay, you're in pain. They know you're in pain, but don't drag them into that pain. So if your wife says, "Hey, honey, can we go out to dinner tonight?" Yeah, let's go. Yeah, where do you want to go? Even though you prefer not to go, to be honest with you.
right.
So I think those are the things that we learn over time, that we can't let the people that are closest to us, we can't shuffle them off to the side. We have to include them, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that point, it's getting through those moments. There are only moments in time in which you might feel down or out, or you lost a tough game, or there's a player or admin or parent situation that is going on. And you just got to get through that moment. But like, meet it head on. Don't try to evade the situation that is inevitable. If you got to have a tough conversation with the player or a parent or a staff member, then have that tough conversation and get it over with, and have an open heart and an open mind. I think listening is key. We don't know all the answers, but as coaches, most of us are alphas types. We like to control things, but listening has been one of the biggest things. Listening to your admin about certain things because they see it in a different light. Now, you may not even agree with it, but that's okay. You might be able to see it from a different perspective. My wife has changed me so much, just being more empathetic to every single, like, just daily stuff. Somebody that I might just ramble off. Hey, do you realize how you said it like that? Do you see why somebody could react that way? No, I didn't. And in the moment, I mean, like, no, that's not true. And then you kind of reflect on it. It's like, yeah, maybe I could have changed my
Yeah.
tone. Maybe I could have been a little bit different. And it's always about moving forward, getting better, learning more about yourself, learning about others. You're never going to get it right 100% of the time. But as long as people understand your heart, that your intention is pure, you want the best for their child, or you want the best for your staff member, or you want the best for the institution or school that you're working for. If people really understand that, then they can get behind you in situations where you may have had a misstep. And so, yeah, that's just, I've been coaching for almost 20 years at the high school level now. I started coaching in 2004. So I've got a couple more years till I'm 20 years in. And I continue to learn from from people like you. I continue to learn from people that are younger than me, because I'm trying to get all that information. And yeah, I really appreciate the relationship that we've had. I've known you since I was 13 years old,
Yeah,
and
good.
I'll be 40 later this year. And to have a mentor where I can always reach out, and you've shared so many gems with me and so many other people. You're a true godsend. You've done God's work for almost 50 years, and you'll continue to do that as long as you're around. So I just really appreciate you,
Well,
Sam.
thank you. Thank you, Chris. Very nice of you to say that, and I appreciate that. And I'm very proud of your work and what you do, because you're good at what you do and you're impacting people. And listen, we're not perfect. The mistakes that I've made over my career, and I've made so many, and I try not to repeat them, but unfortunately, sometimes we do. Most of the mistakes that I know I've made there was a rhyme and a reason. In other words, it just didn't come off maybe the way you'd want it to, but there was a thought process involved. There's always a thought process. Okay. Now, maybe I shouldn't have run the team that much. Maybe I shouldn't have chewed them out that much. But at the time, I felt that is what was important. So, there again, what you had said, sometimes you need to turn to your assistant coaches, or in fact, when Jason was with me as my director of operations, I would go to him and say, what do you think? He said, Dad, they played hard today. They played hard. Their effort was really good. I wouldn't get on them, and that would be enough for me. In other words, just to listen to somebody uh, who is objective about it. And I think that's really important, to have that relationship with your staff, where maybe you're frustrated. You're frustrated. You spent all week putting in this zone press, all week, and then the game comes and it's not executed to your liking, and you get beat by 20, and you want to unload a little bit. You want to just kind of get some things off your chest. Well, maybe before you do it, you say, "What do you think?" And you hope you have an assistant that has the courage to say, "Coach McSwain, talk to him tomorrow. Let's talk to him tomorrow, and let's get on the bus and let's head home." You need to have that person to advise you in those critical situations. And sometimes I didn't do as good a job with that. Sometimes I did. But I would think, as we get more experience, as we gain more insight into the young people now, and how they are and how they process things, you have to adjust with that mentality that these players of this culture have now. So it's
100.
incumbent on us to do it.
1000%. And Coach P, you're a legend. Thank you for joining us. And can't wait to see you in person again soon here.
Thank you, Chris. Give my best to your family and continued good work with all your podcasts and coaching. Okay. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.